He never meant to collide with her life, yet the moment he stepped into that quiet little bookstore, something in the air shifted, as if the world had been waiting for them to stand in the same patch of light. That's where it began. A breath. A pause. A sense that someone else's heartbeat had wandered a little too close. Elena felt it first. A soft current, like someone opening a window she didn't know had been locked. She had spent her days tucked between shelves of faded spines and whispered stories, keeping her distance from anything that looked like trouble. She liked order. Predictability. Quiet days where nothing unexpected tried to tug at her heart. But then he walked in. Gabriel. He looked as though he'd stepped out of a story the world had tried to forget, steady posture, warm eyes, and the kind of presence that filled the room without ever raising its voice. He paused by the front desk, brushing rain off his jacket. "Afternoon," he said. His voice was soft but carried, like something made of calm thunder. "Hi," Elena replied, careful, polite, already retreating behind the invisible boundaries she kept between herself and strangers. He smiled. Not a broad one. Just a small, genuine curl of recognition, as if he'd met her somewhere before, even though she was certain he hadn't. He wandered the aisles without hurry, stopping now and then to thumb through a worn paperback or tilt his head at a title that had once meant something to him. Every now and then, he glanced back toward the desk. Not in a way that intruded, but in a way that noticed. Elena tried to ignore it. She'd learned long ago that attention could bloom into hopes she didn't trust herself to hold. She preferred distance. Walls. Soft rain on a window instead of thunder rolling beneath her ribs. Still, something about him tugged at the threads she'd kept tied so neatly. When he returned to the desk, he carried a book she hadn't expected anyone to choose. It was an old novel about finding courage in quiet places. "I used to read this when things felt heavy," Gabriel said. "Thought I'd see if it still feels the same." Elena nodded, though a curious warmth nudged her guard. "It's a good one." "It is," he replied. "Feels a little like coming home." His eyes held hers just long enough for her pulse to trip over itself. She quickly rang up the book, keeping her voice steady, her hands careful. "Would you like a bag? If it's no trouble." "It's not." She slipped the book inside and handed it to him, avoiding the magnetic steadiness of his gaze. But then his fingers brushed hers, not deliberate, not bold, just an accident, a small crossing of paths that felt far larger than it should have. For a moment, Elena forgot the distance she was supposed to keep. Gabriel noticed her quiet inhale and offered an apologetic tilt of his head. "Sorry. Didn't mean to startle you." "You didn't," she lied gently. He didn't call her out on it. He didn't tease. He simply nodded, as though he could see the edges of her caution and respected every one of them. That alone made her chest ache in a way she couldn't name. On his way to the door, he paused again. "I'll bring the book back when I finish," he said. "Tell you if it still feels like home." She didn't ask him to. She didn't say he should. But something in her wished for it anyway. "Have a good evening," she murmured. "You too." When the door closed behind him, a hush settled over the shop. But it wasn't the same as before. The quiet held new weight, new warmth, as if someone had left a lantern burning in the corner of her thoughts. Elena exhaled slowly. She had tried to keep her distance. She always did. But something told her Gabriel wasn't the kind of man who let distance stay unchallenged, not forcefully, not carelessly, but gently, with patience that could stretch across a lifetime. And that thought alone unsettled her more than she wanted to admit. Outside, the rain softened. Inside, her heart didn't. Some stories don't begin with fireworks. Some begin with a stranger who notices you a moment too long. And deep down, Elena already feared she was standing at the start of something she might not be able to step away from. If you're enjoying this story so far, please like the video and subscribe for more heartfelt tales. As she turned off the shop lights and locked the door behind her, she couldn't shake the feeling that Gabriel would return sooner than she expected, and that next time, something in her might shift again. Part 2 Some moments don't rush. They wait quietly, like a heartbeat holding its breath. Elena felt that waiting the next morning. She unlocked the bookstore at her usual slow pace, trying to pretend everything felt the same as always. But something inside her flickered with a restless kind of warmth, as if her thoughts kept circling back to a man who had walked in, smiled once, and left something behind without meaning to. She told herself not to expect him. Not today. Not at all. Expectations had a way of unraveling her peace. But even as she straightened a display of new arrivals, she caught herself glancing toward the door, tiny, stolen looks, as if she were checking the weather. The bell finally chimed mid-morning. Elena looked up too quickly. Her heart jolted before her mind reminded her to breathe. Gabriel stepped inside with the same quiet presence, carrying the old paperback he'd bought just the day before. The book looked barely touched, as if he'd handled it carefully enough not to wake it. "Morning," he said. His voice carried a warmth that slipped under her guard before she could stop it. "You finished already?" she asked. Even she could hear the surprise in her tone. He lifted the book gently. "I couldn't put it down." Elena blinked. "You read it overnight?" "More like I read it until the sky turned pale." A small laugh escaped her, soft, unplanned. "That sounds exhausting." It was, he admitted, but the good kind of exhausting. The kind that makes you feel settled afterward. There it was again, that way he spoke, simple and honest, like he was handing her pieces of himself without asking for anything in return. Gabriel set the book on the counter. "Thought I'd return it to the world now that it's reminded me who I used to be." Elena touched the book's corner. "Did it still feel like home?" He met her eyes with a quiet steadiness. "More than I expected." Her pulse fluttered. She didn't know how to respond to that, so she focused on placing the book back on the cart. Her hands felt too warm. Gabriel watched her for a moment, then shifted as if summoning a soft kind of courage. "I'm actually looking for something else," he said. "If you don't mind recommending something." Elena hesitated. She usually avoided personal connections with customers. But Gabriel wasn't like most customers. He made space feel different, gentler, sharper, more awake. "What do you like?" she asked. "Something with heart," he said. "Something that stays quiet but still says more than it seems to." Those words struck her deeper than she expected. She led him down the fiction aisle. Each step felt heavier and lighter at the same time, like walking toward something she didn't yet understand. When she stopped at a shelf near the middle, Gabriel stood beside her, his presence close but never intrusive. She pulled out a thin novel. "This one. What's it about?" "People finding their way back to themselves," she said. Slowly. Without noise. He accepted the book with a thoughtful nod. Then he asked something she didn't see coming. "You ever feel like you're finding your way back to something?" he said softly. "Or someone?" Elena froze. She wasn't prepared for that. Not for the question. Not for the way he asked it. Not for how it made her chest tighten with something dangerously close to longing. "I'm not sure," she whispered. Gabriel's voice gentled even more. "That's okay. Some answers take their time." She forced her gaze to remain on the shelf, not on him. "Do you always talk like that?" "Like what?" "Like every sentence carries a heartbeat." A small smile played at his lips. "Only when it matters." That did not help her heartbeat at all. She returned to the counter so she could breathe again. Gabriel followed, still quiet, still respectful, still somehow too close to all the spaces she kept locked away. When she rang up the book, he slid a folded paper across the counter. She stared. "What's this?" "A page," he said, "from an old notebook of mine. Something I wrote a long time ago. Thought you might like it." Elena unfolded it with hesitant fingers. Inside was a short paragraph, handwritten in soft, steady lines. It spoke of finding calm in unexpected places. Of how some people carry storms without ever letting others feel the wind. Her breath trembled. "It reminded me of this shop," he said gently. "And maybe, a little of you." She swallowed hard. "Why would you give this to me?" "Because you look like someone who keeps too much quiet inside," he answered. "And because I don't want to intrude, but I didn't want to walk away again without leaving something honest." Before she could gather her scattered thoughts, he added, "If that's too much, just tell me. I don't want to make you uncomfortable." "No," she whispered quickly. "It's not uncomfortable. Just, unexpected. Gabriel nodded. Then I'll leave it with you. He picked up the book and stepped back toward the door. Elena felt something shift again, like a door opening inside her chest, just a sliver, just enough for a light she wasn't ready for. Gabriel paused at the doorway, looked back once, and spoke with calm certainty. I'll see you soon. He didn't say when. He didn't promise anything dramatic. But she felt the echo of his words long after he left, as if he'd placed them gently in her hands. Elena folded the note again and held it to her heart. Something warm, something frightening, something quietly hopeful unfurled inside her. She had tried so hard to keep her distance. But distance was beginning to feel impossible. And maybe, just maybe, that terrified her for all the right reasons. Some days arrive quietly, but still manage to change everything. Elena felt that truth press gently against her the very next afternoon. She tried to dive into her usual rhythm, dusting shelves, organizing returns, pretending her pulse didn't leap every time the bell over the door whispered at the slightest breeze. But her thoughts kept circling, looping back to the folded note Gabriel had left her. She had read it more times than she would admit aloud. Not because it was dramatic. Not because it promised anything. But because it felt like someone had finally seen the quiet corners she thought she hid well. By early afternoon, she decided she needed fresh air. Just a minute outside. Just enough to steady herself. She stepped onto the sidewalk, letting the cool wind brush her face. The street was calm, humming with ordinary life. She almost convinced herself her heart was inventing storms out of simple encounters. Then she heard the voice behind her. I was hoping I'd catch you. She turned. Gabriel stood a few paces away, holding a paper cup with steam drifting from the top. Something in his expression softened when he saw her, like he'd found something he didn't realize he was looking for. You're back, she said, her voice quieter than she meant. I am, he replied. And I brought a peace offering. He extended the cup toward her. Hot chocolate, he said. You said yesterday felt exhausting but good. Thought you deserved something warm today. Elena blinked at him. I didn't say that. No, he admitted, but it looked like it. Her heart tugged again, gentle, but insistent. She took the cup, her fingers brushing his for the briefest moment. Thank you. You're welcome. He didn't rush. He didn't fill the air with chatter. He just stood there, letting the world move around them, giving her space to breathe. After a moment, he nodded toward the bench just outside the shop. Mind if I sit a minute? Elena hesitated, but only for a heartbeat. Okay. They sat with a careful space between them, the kind that felt chosen, not forced. The wind rustled leaves along the sidewalk, carrying small pieces of conversation from strangers passing by. Elena sipped the hot chocolate. It tasted soft, like a memory she couldn't place. Gabriel watched cars drift down the street before speaking. I used to come here, he said. Years ago. Before life pulled me in too many directions. To the bookstore, she asked. To this whole street, he clarified. It felt steady. And I needed steady back then. And now? He looked at her, something quiet and earnest in his gaze. Now it feels like I found the reason I came back. Elena's breath tangled. You don't even know me, she whispered. Not yet, he corrected softly. But I'd like to. She stared down at the cup, her fingers tightening around it. I'm not very easy to know. I'm not in a hurry, he said. Those 5 words pressed gently against her walls, as if testing whether they might bend just a little. She wanted to retreat. To protect herself. To pretend none of this tugged at her the way it did. But instead, her voice wavered with honesty she didn't expect to share. What if I'm guarded? She asked quietly. Gabriel nodded, no judgment in his eyes. Then I'll be careful. Her throat tightened. He wasn't dramatic. He wasn't reckless. He simply spoke with a steadiness that felt safe in ways she hadn't felt in years. Before she could respond, a gust of wind swept through, sending a few loose flyers across the sidewalk. One fluttered toward Elena's feet, a slip of paper announcing a weekend book fair at the park. Gabriel leaned down and picked it up, eyeing it with a thoughtful spark. You ever been to this? He asked. Once, she said. A long time ago. He held out the flyer between two fingers, his expression hopeful but not pushy. Would you go again? Her heart thudded. With you? She asked, barely above a whisper. If you want, he answered. If not, I'll still go. But I'd like it better if you were there. Warmth pooled in her chest, slow, surprising, and terrifying in a way that didn't feel dangerous, just unfamiliar. I'll think about it, she said. That's enough, he replied gently. He stood, brushing off the bench. I won't keep you. I just wanted to bring the hot chocolate, and maybe see your face again. Her cheeks warmed. He took one step backward, then paused as if choosing his next words with care. Elena, he said softly, you don't have to keep running from whatever scares you. I won't cross a line you don't want me to. I just hope you'll let me be close enough to understand you. Then he smiled, small, patient, real, and started down the sidewalk. Elena sat frozen, hot chocolate warming her hands while something else warmed the parts of her heart she'd kept closed for so long. She had tried to build walls. But Gabriel treated them like doors waiting to be knocked on, never shoved, never forced, always approached with quiet respect. And that was somehow far more disarming than anything bold or reckless could ever be. As he disappeared around the corner, her chest fluttered with an ache she didn't know how to name. Hope. Fear. Longing. Something was unfolding, slow, steady, unstoppable. And she wasn't sure she wanted to stop it anymore. Part 4 approximately 700 to 800 words, Some days speak softly at first, then shift the ground under your feet before you realize anything is moving. Elena felt that shift the moment she woke the next morning. She stared at the ceiling for a long breath, replaying Gabriel's words, his steadiness, the gentleness in the way he looked at her, as if he saw the whole map of her fear and wasn't afraid of any of it. She hadn't said yes to the book fair. But she also hadn't said no. And that uncertainty lingered in her chest like a faint echo. When she arrived at the bookstore, the morning light stretched through the windows in calm ribbons. It should have felt like any ordinary day. But her pulse carried a strange flutter, as if the world was waiting for her to make a choice she wasn't sure she was brave enough to make. The bell over the door chimed sooner than she expected. She looked up, heart leaping out of habit. Not Gabriel. Just a delivery driver dropping off a box of new fiction. Elena exhaled, trying to steady herself. But when the bell chimed again, only minutes later, she knew, before even turning, that it was him. Gabriel stepped into the shop with a warm ease, shoulders relaxed, eyes kind. He wasn't carrying a book this time. Just his calm presence, and something else in his expression she couldn't quite read yet. Morning, he said. The word brushed gently against her defenses. Hi, Elena murmured, her hands curling nervously around the edge of the counter. Gabriel came closer, but not too close. He always seemed to know where her comfort line rested. He leaned his forearms lightly against the counter, speaking with the kind of tone that made the room feel steady. So, he said, I'm leaving town for a couple of days. Her breath caught unexpected, sharp. Oh, she said. For work. Family things, he replied. Nothing heavy. Just something I promised I'd help with. She nodded, fingers tapping the wood. That's good. I hope it goes smoothly. His eyes softened at the tremor she hadn't meant to let slip into her voice. I'll be back before the weekend, he said gently. Before the book fair. Elena felt her heart tighten. He wasn't asking the question out loud. Not directly. But the hope sat quietly between them. She swallowed. I haven't decided yet. I know, Gabriel said. And that's all right. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out something small. A simple bookmark, thick paper, hand-painted, edges slightly uneven. A watercolor sky fading from deep purple into soft sunrise gold. He placed it on the counter between them. I made this a long time ago, he said. When life felt too loud. Thought, maybe you'd like it. Elena brushed a gentle finger over the colors. It's beautiful. It reminded me of the way you look when you talk about books you love, he said quietly. Like you're standing somewhere between dusk and dawn. Her breath stilled. He always said things that felt like they landed exactly where she was most vulnerable, but never in a way that frightened her. More like he was carefully lifting the edge of a curtain she'd kept closed. "Gabriel," she whispered, feeling her pulse quicken, "why are you doing all this?" He took a slow breath. "Because," he said, "every time I walk into this shop, I feel something settle inside me. Something I didn't realize I'd been missing for a long time." Her chest tightened painfully. "But you don't even know me," she murmured again, softer than ever. He shook his head gently. "I know more than you think. Not your entire past. Not every fear you carry. But I know the way you treat the world. I know how you listen even when you pretend you're not. I know you care more than you admit." His eyes held hers with warm steadiness. "And I know I want to understand the rest, slowly, only if you let me." Her throat thickened. For a moment, she didn't speak. Couldn't speak. She was used to people looking past her, not into her. Used to being careful, not seen. But Gabriel didn't push. He simply waited, patient as the sunrise his bookmark resembled. Finally, Elena drew a shaky breath. "I'm afraid," she confessed, voice barely there. "Of getting close to someone. Of letting something matter." Gabriel nodded, not surprised, not disappointed. Just quietly present. "We can go slow," he said. "Or stay where we are for a while. I'm not asking for a decision today. Just honesty. And you already gave me that." Silence wrapped around them, soft, vulnerable, delicate. Then he stepped back, giving her space again. "I should go," he said. "But before I do." He reached into his pocket once more and placed a small piece of folded paper on top of the bookmark. "Open it later," he said. "Only when you feel ready." Elena stared at the note, heart thrumming in her chest. "All right." Gabriel offered her one last gentle smile, the kind that seemed to settle right beneath her ribs. "I'll see you in a few days," he said. "And whatever you decide about the book fair, it's enough." Then he turned and walked out of the shop, leaving behind the soft echo of footsteps and the steady warmth of someone who hadn't tried to break down her walls, only knock with patience. Elena looked at the folded paper but didn't open it. Not yet. Her heart wasn't steady enough. Instead, she pressed it to her chest, letting the promise of something slowly forming rest against her skin. She didn't know what the note said. But she already knew it mattered. And that alone made her breath tremble. Some moments don't arrive with thunder. They arrive with quiet certainty, gentle, but impossible to ignore. Elena felt that certainty the morning the book fair finally came. She stood in her apartment doorway for far too long, holding the small folded note Gabriel had left her. She'd avoided opening it for days, afraid of what she might feel. Afraid of what it might ask of her. But today, something inside her stirred. Not courage exactly. Just the soft, persistent nudge of a heart deciding it was tired of hiding. She unfolded the paper with careful fingers. Inside was a single line, written in Gabriel's calm, steady handwriting. Asterisk asterisk, if you ever choose to step toward something new, I'll be where the light breaks through the trees. Asterisk asterisk. Her breath caught. It wasn't a plea. It wasn't pressure. It was a promise, quiet, patient, open. Elena pressed the note to her chest. And for the first time, she allowed herself to want something without immediately stepping away from it. She took a slow, trembling breath. Then she grabbed her coat and stepped outside. Asterisk asterisk, the park buzzed with gentle life asterisk asterisk by the time she arrived. Tents scattered across the grass, each one holding books that waited for new hands to discover them. Strings of small lights hung above tables, even though the sun was bright. Music drifted softly from a speaker somewhere, the kind that made the air feel warm even when the breeze whispered through. But Elena wasn't looking at the books. Or the tents. Or the crowd. She was looking for him. Her heart thudded in an uneven rhythm, hope wrapped in fear, fear wrapped in something quieter, something almost tender. Then she saw him. Gabriel stood beneath a towering maple tree where sunlight slipped between the leaves and scattered across the ground. The light touched him in pieces, warm and bright, just as his note had said. He hadn't noticed her yet. He was flipping through a book on a display, expression thoughtful, posture relaxed. Elena froze. For a moment, she wondered if she should turn around. Slip away. Pretend she never came. But the thought lasted only a breath. She had run from moments like this too many times in her life. And Gabriel wasn't someone who pushed. He simply waited, quiet, steady, open. She stepped forward. One step. Another. Her heartbeat a thin, trembling thread pulling her closer. When she reached the shadow beneath the tree, Gabriel finally looked up. Surprise softened into something warmer. Elena. Hearing her name in his voice made something inside her unravel in the gentlest way. I wasn't sure you'd come, he said softly. I wasn't sure either, she admitted. But I wanted to. He closed the book, giving her his full attention without crowding her space. I'm glad you did. They stood there for a moment, not speaking, letting the quiet settle comfortably between them. Finally, Gabriel's gaze drifted toward her hand. You opened the note. I did. Too much? He asked gently. No, she said, voice steadier now. Not too much. Just enough. A small smile curved at his lips. Good. Elena took another breath, the kind that felt like a small leap. Gabriel. I'm not good at this. I don't know how to be open quickly, or clearly, or without fear. You don't have to be quick, he said. Or clear. Or fearless. But I want to try, she whispered. With you. His expression warmed, deepening, almost luminous beneath the shifting leaves. Then we start slow. Step by step. Whatever pace you choose. Elena nodded, the weight on her chest loosening for the first time in so long that the relief felt almost like drifting upward. She looked around the fair, then back at him. Walk with me. He offered his arm, not in a way that demanded anything, just an invitation, open and gentle. She hesitated only a heartbeat before linking her arm through his, the contact light but real. Her fingers trembled once, then settled. They moved together through the fair, weaving between tables of worn stories and new beginnings. Gabriel didn't rush her. He matched her pace, quiet and patient, as if nothing in the world mattered except being exactly where she was. Every few steps, their shoulders brushed tiny sparks she felt all the way to her ribs. At one booth, Gabriel paused and handed her a thin book with a small smile. This one made me think of you. Elena took it carefully. Why? He tapped the cover, which showed a single lantern glowing in a vast field. Because it's about someone who spent so long hiding her light that she forgot it was meant to be seen. Her throat tightened, emotion rising in a soft wave she didn't try to push down. She slipped the book against her chest, holding it close. Gabriel? Yes. I'm still learning how to let someone close. I know, he said gently. But you're already closer than you think. Tears pricked the corners of her eyes, not sad, not painful. Just full. She looked at him, truly looked, and whispered the truth that had been building in her chest since the moment he first walked into her shop. I'm glad you didn't let me stay distant. Gabriel's smile deepened, warm as quiet morning light. Me too. And as they continued walking arm in arm, step by step, Elena felt something settle inside her. Not fear. Not uncertainty. Something steadier. Something warm. Something that felt a little like the start of a new chapter she was finally ready to read. Because some stories don't begin with fireworks or grand declarations. Some begin when someone gentle refuses to let your distance become a wall. And Elena knew, without doubt, without fear, that she didn't want distance anymore. Not from him. Not from this. Not from the quiet, unexpected moment her heart had decided to open.